Hello and welcome. In the connector overview tutorial, we gave you background on what connectors were and what their use is. In this tutorial, we're going to demonstrate creating a connection to SalesLogix version 7. To do that, I go to the Tools menu, select Connector Manager, and you see the Connector Manager comes up. This shows you a tree view over on the left-hand side, illustrates that connectors can be put into folders. If I expand a folder, you can see the connectors available in it. Over on the right-hand side, the dynamic help is showing us information about the Connector Manager in general. As you'll recall from the overview, the Connector Manager is used for managing connectors, creating, editing, and deleting them. I'm going to create a connector in the demo folder. So to do that, I select the demo folder and then come up here and select the Create New Connector button. And I will give it a name. Call it Demo SLX 7. And then down here you can see that we've got a number of types of connector for SalesLogix. Version 6.2 and 7, 6.0, 6.1, and 5.2. I'll select this one, click OK, and that brings up the specific connector editor for SalesLogix version 6.2 and 7, and notice the help over here has changed to information about that. We actually create two connections to SalesLogix, one using the LADB provider and one using a direct connect to the underlying SQL server. We'll start with the SalesLogix connection. We need to specify the server name, and then we need to specify a user. This is a SalesLogix user that we're going to use to log in with. Normally we would want this user to have administrative privileges on the SalesLogix database to make sure that we get all the data that we might want to get out of it. So I'm going to select admin, enter the password. Down here we can specify a port to use on the LADB provider. Normally you would leave this alone. Once we've done that, we click Get SalesLogix Connections, and the inner port goes away and gets the aliases that have been established for this particular SalesLogix server. I'm going to select the server alias. One brief point while we're talking about the SalesLogix LADB provider: you must have the LADB provider installed on the same system as you have Innoport installed on, and it must be the correct version. In particular, if you've upgraded from SalesLogix 6 to SalesLogix 7, make sure that you've upgraded the LADB provider on the system to the version 7 provider. Once I've done that, click Establish Connection, and that comes back and tells me that it's been successful, and then these boxes down here are enabled. These boxes allow me to set some defaults to use when we're actually writing to the SalesLogix database. In particular, I can specify the default account manager and the default owner to be used when new records are created. If I click the drop-down list, you can see we get a list of users and teams out of the SalesLogix database. I'm going to select admin for the account manager, and I'm going to select admin for the owner as well. Obviously, you can specify the appropriate user for your environment, and these defaults can be overridden on a record-by-record basis during the import operation. There's information in the online help in the section on SalesLogix functions about how to do that. There's also some information up here in the blue text. Down here we need to specify what the default branch is. That's used when we're creating or moving attachments to the SalesLogix server. When we're moving attachments, we're actually moving files around the file system. We need to know the correct place to put that, and that's established by selecting the branch option. And if you are doing that, you also need to make sure that the identity that you're running as has right permissions on the file structure on the SalesLogix server. Once we've done that, the second step is to go to the SQL Server tab. This establishes a direct connection to the SQL Server. Innoport uses this for schema information. It does not use it to actually write data to the target database. So again, I'll specify the server name, and this time it has to be a SQL Server user, and typically we'll use sysdba and specify the password for sysdba. And once we've done that, click Get Database List, and we get a list of the databases on the server. When we select the SalesLogix database, it's important to make sure that we select the same database as we selected when we chose the alias on the previous tab. So I'm going to select the SalesLogix database and test the connection. That was okay. And finally, I can write some notes to remind myself of why I was creating this connector or any specific issues. For example, I might note that this is the test server rather than the production server. Click OK, and you can see that that connection has now been created and put into the tree.